Welcome to the first Qigong coaching clinic of June and several months. I think the last one we had was probably in March or maybe even February. It was probably before I had to travel to Europe, not once, but twice, to help Ukrainian refugees, including my own parents. And so I'm back in the States for the time being, although probably will be traveling back to Europe again in a month. But this is something that I feel passionate about, doing our clinics. And so I wanted to share with you some of the ways to get into alignment with your highest priority values. That's what we also refer to as our life's purpose. People who live their lives on purpose, by and large, experience greater quality of life, don't they? And conversely, if people don't experience high quality of life, often it's because they feel like they don't live a life on purpose or their lives don't matter. Do you want to live like your life matters? I hope so. If you live your life in a way that you feel like it matters, by and large, you experience greater quality of life because you feel like you're doing something important in your life. You're not wasting your time on planet Earth. Who wants to waste your time living on planet Earth? Feel free to raise your hand. Okay, if nobody is raising the hand, apparently that's not something that we want to be doing. But this is something that a lot of us actually complain about. Many people I talk to, I work with many people, as you know, many people say that, I feel like I don't live my life on purpose or something is missing and I'm kind of flailing or floundering and not really living the meaningful life. Well, that's painful to not live a meaningful life, isn't it? I mean, if you could imagine that you only have 1 year left to live on this planet, would you want to spend this year living as meaningfully and on purpose as possible? Well, guess what? Nobody knows how much time we do have on this planet to live. It's a mystery how long we have. And so we might as well have this attitude that we need to live our lives as on purpose as humanly possible. But how do we find purpose in life? How do we make our lives meaningful? Well, one of the things that we want to do is perhaps to find what it is that we're passionate about. And if we do things that we are passionate about, guess what? We feel better about it. When you do something that you're really passionate about, maybe you feel sometimes like the time disappears. You just simply forget about going to the bathroom or eating dinner. Sometimes you may get so engrossed in the activity that you're really passionate about that 5 hours fly by and you don't notice how that happened. Have you ever experienced that? Yeah? Well, that's because you found something that you were passionate about. Most people, on the other hand, don't complain about experiencing this kind of things, often simply because they haven't found what they're passionate about. Now, it was easier probably to find things that we were passionate about when we were kids, because we were not as deeply indoctrinated and domesticated, if you will. So we were basically not constantly trying to please everybody else with doing what they think is important. So we often did what we felt was important to us. Often it was play of some sort. And playing is something that we could probably do for hours as kids, wasn't it? Now, can we find something that would be just as exciting and we would feel as passionate about as playing in our adulthood? Because that's what is going to actually make you feel like you're really spending your time doing something that is important to you. Now, I'm making this statement as a caveat. It's important to you. It doesn't always necessarily mean that it's just equally important to other people. As a matter of fact, you may find even more valuable sometimes to do things that are important to others. Maybe not necessarily at the expense of your own passions or at your own things that you find meaningful. Maybe you find some connections or parallels between what's important to you and what's important to others. If you find that, then you feel like you are doing something that you're passionate about and others benefit from it too. And I'm talking about others both as other people and as well as other living being or sentient beings. Basically, if you do something environmentally important, let's say maybe involved in protection of endangered species or doing some environmental cleanup or just engaging in ecotourism, well, you may be very passionate about it. And you may also be contributing to the health of the planet. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that it's important to feel that you're doing something to help the whole world, because the more you do things that are helpful to the whole world, whether you think that you're going to save the world, or at least you're doing something that would benefit others, the more you feel like you're doing things on purpose. Not at the expense of yourself necessarily, even though sometimes people take heroic actions at the expense of their own well-being to help others. So those are heroes that we often venerate and we often put on a pedestal because, well, they did something that was important to others, even at the expense of their own well-being or sometimes even their own lives. Even if you don't want to be the hero that sacrifices your life for the benefits of others, you can still find something that would be beneficial for other people or for other sentient beings, but it also would be something that you're passionate about. So here, this is like a Venn diagram of sorts. You essentially have something that you're passionate about and something that would benefit the world. If there is any intersection between these two areas of interest, doing things at that intersection would be beneficial for both yourself and other people or other sentient beings. Now, I hope this makes sense. Does it not? I hope it does, because thanks, David. All right, so we're looking at the ways to basically create greater synergy. We're talking about synergy as the ability to bring together the energies of two or more energy resources. And we're talking about, in this particular case, the energy of our own resource, such as our own passion. Hey, Par, good to see you, man. Joining us in all the way from northern Sweden. Awesome. Now, we also want to combine that resource of our own passion with the resource of helping the world, making the world a better place. Now, that in combination can be very powerful. Do you know of any examples of people who managed to do things that they would be passionate about and also that would be beneficial to others? If you do, please feel free to raise your hand and speak up. I would love to hear your examples of that. Come on, folks. You know that there are people like that. I'm not the only one who does something that I'm passionate about and also help to make the world a better place, am I?
I just got the prompt to unmute.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm
And
hearing an echo.
I don't hear any echo. You're doing great, David. So feel free to share any example of somebody you know who does something they're passionate about and it also helps other people or the world in general.
I think there's probably a lot of examples. Um, Maybe I'll just share personally that I do feel passionate about connecting with others in a sort of, let's say, prayerful way, healing way, and
Um,
and I believe that it has a benefit, to others and to myself. And there's also in the midst of that a desire to do more. Let's just say. So I think maybe that's enough. I mean, I could name
Fair
people,
enough.
but yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, basically, we want to find something that would be that would allow us to experience this kind of synergy between what we're passionate about and what helps the world to become a better place. Now, as I mentioned myself, obviously, I have found that I've been doing this for many years. If you have been hearing from me for many years, or at least for a while, that's because I've been active, proactive, helping hundreds, no, thousands of people. Actually, to be precise, more like dozens of thousands of people worldwide in a variety of different ways. And this is one of the ways that I find particularly helpful to help people find purpose in life. Because without feeling purposeful, the life doesn't have this much meaning. What else is important that would be necessary to bring into this equation? Well, let me put it this way. It's important to know what you're good at. If you do things that you're good at and you're passionate about them, well, then obviously you're also experiencing some degree of synergy. Because if you are not good at what you're passionate about, you will suck at it. And so you're constantly going to be experiencing some kind of degree of disappointment or ridicule. And so it's okay to experience ridicule. It's okay to experience embarrassment as you are learning things. Nothing that is worth really learning comes very easily. It's like if anything that requires mastery, it comes too easily. Usually, mastery comes too easily to people who try it, and as a result, it's not even considered mastery. It's just considered, you know, it's easy to do. Things like, for example, um, you know, you can learn how to ride a bicycle. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to become a great bicyclist, but it's relatively easy to learn how to ride a bike. And so we don't consider that this is like a purpose in life to ride a bicycle because it's too easy, millions of people doing it. And so there is no really profound reason to consider this purpose in life. Now, if you could ride a bicycle and make the world a better place, like some bicyclists, for example, who become famous for winning Tour de France or various other things, and they actually put themselves to good use as maybe advocates for greater health, or um, they promote certain environmental causes or other things. Yeah, then riding a bicycle is no longer just a thing that they enjoy doing and do it well. It becomes a vehicle for doing something more important than in their lives. So I don't want to disparage you from riding a bicycle. Knock yourself out, ride a bicycle as you wish, but we are talking about finding something that you can become good at as a result of practice. For example, Kung Fu. Kung Fu is a Chinese term that literally means that becoming masterful at something as a result of a lot of practice. So Kung Fu is not even the term for martial arts, even though that's what most people think of Kung Fu when they hear the term. Kung Fu literally means mastering something that requires a significant amount of investment of effort and time. In other words, Qigong, for example, is an example of Kung Fu. As a matter of fact, it's the exact same Chinese character, Gong. Gong means work or practice. So energy work, Qi Gong translates into English as energy work, is the type of practice that actually requires significant amount of investment of energy and effort in order to become good at. That's something that I've been doing for most of my life, something that I find myself passionate about, and I also find that it benefits a lot of people worldwide. So that's what I do for a living. I brought up another important part of this formula, doing something for a living. In other words, doing something that other people would actually appreciate and maybe pay you money for. So interestingly, people often won't pay you money for trying to save the world. Often people will not pay money for that which they need. They often will pay you for what they want. See the difference? People often don't appreciate what they need, or people often will not pay you money to making the world a better place. They will pay you for that which they want. And often they want different things from what they need. Have you met anyone who was confused about what they wanted versus what they needed? I've met thousands of people like that. As a matter of fact, almost everyone is that way. And that's something we want to reconcile. We have to find a way to basically, again, find kind of an intersection of these Venn diagrams between what people need and what they want. At that intersection, we find something that people will actually appreciate, they will pay money for. In other words, we can make this, make a living out of this. And also, they benefit from it, or the whole world becomes better as a result of us doing it. So that means we actually combine business with pleasure, so to speak. We make a living doing that, which is also making the world a better place. Wow, that's like a dream job definition, isn't it? Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We want to create our own dream jobs. Each and every one of us deserves to have a dream job. Life is too short to spend on doing things that we don't find valuable. Life is too short to spend doing things that we don't receive any appreciation for. Life is too short to spend doing things that we don't feel passionate about. Well, what are we going to do? We need to find that intersection between the four quadrants, the four areas of activity that I just mentioned. So let me reiterate it once again. Number one is the things that you particularly feel passionate about, that you can feel really good doing with, for a long period of time, and sometimes get so engrossed in it you forget about eating dinner or even going to the bathroom. Another thing is finding something that the world needs, something that would make the world a better place or would contribute to other people's well-being or improve our environment. In other words, something that is not only beneficial to yourself, but beneficial to others or other sentient beings. The third aspect of this simple and elegant formula is what I already mentioned, doing something that you're good at. So if you know something that you're particularly good at, but you don't find it beneficial to others, like for example, I'm a really good shot. I shoot really well. I, you know, I shoot various types of firearms, guns, handguns, pistols, what have you. I'm good at it. I don't particularly find it beneficial to other people. So I don't consider this my life's purpose to shoot. So I'm not in the military. I'm not training people actively as a shooter, but I'm good at it. Now, am I passionate about shooting? It's kind of fun, but I wouldn't spend my days just spending on the shooting range. So, in other words, that's kind of a pastime perhaps I can do, but it's not something I consider my professional career or purpose in life. However, I'm particularly good at Qigong coaching. And that's what I love doing. And that's what people benefit from. And that seems to be also something that people resonate with enough to pay money for. So that's the number 4 aspect of this formula. Something that people would appreciate and would pay money for. Something that you're passionate about, something that makes the world a better place, something that you're good at, and something that people would pay for. In other words, intersection between what they want and what they need is important to find so that they would actually support you financially. Because the more people you help, the more people will support you. If you don't help other people in a way that they appreciate, often they will not support you. You may receive support from somebody else or from the government, maybe go on welfare, but that's not living a life on purpose, is it? So this is a simple and elegant formula or a method of discovering the passion and life that also can become a purpose in life. It has a certain name. It's a Japanese name called Ikigai. Now, I know it sounds funny. You probably met some Ikigais in your life. This is a Japanese word, Ikigai, spelled in one word, Ikigai, and it literally means that, finding a life's purpose. So it's such a simple and elegant solution to most people's problems. Do you feel like what I just shared with you would be able to help you discover easier and more efficiently what your life purpose might be? If so, please unmute yourself. Paris says, no, but well, if it doesn't help you, that's fine. I may be able to coach you right now if you want to. Feel free to unmute yourself still. Or anybody else, feel free to speak up if you feel like this actually helped you, or if you need more help.
I feel very uncomfortable with myself because my services is not needed around my in my world.
You feel like you're not needed in your world?
I have very bad self-esteem. Right. Yes.
Right. Yeah. And I know that what you have to offer to other people may be important to them, but they may not appreciate it. That's exactly what I was talking about. People need to value what you have to offer enough to actually thank you for that and pay you money for that. If you found what it is that they need, then it's hard to help them because you're helping them and they're not grateful. And so what we'll do is we continue searching. We continue looking for things that people would appreciate. Offer them one thing, see how well that's received. If it's not received well enough, offer a different thing, see how that is received. If it's not working, continue throwing things at the wall until something sticks. In other words, it's hard to guess. So sometimes it's also possible to ask people, what would you want to experience as a result of me helping you? Or how would you like me to help you so that you would feel really much better about your life, or something in your life would be improved? In other words, we sometimes have a hard time guessing what people want or what people need. It's okay to ask them. If you ask more people, you will eventually start noticing there are certain patterns of what people are looking for, what people are appreciate, and you will actually be able to start giving them that which they want. Does it make sense?
Well, in Sweden right now, it's like Thailand for some 10 years ago. It's all about money. They want money. They want to earn money, and they don't want to pay for any services.
Well, if they want more money, perhaps some of the services that would help them make more money would be the kind of services that they would look for.
Yes, but I don't like money because that's greed.
Well, money itself is not greed. It's how people relate to money may be greedy. So instead of blaming money for all the ills of the world, we may actually realize that money is just an amplifier. It amplifies people's attitudes. Somebody doesn't have money, they may be greedy, but you can't really tell that. Give them more money, they become greedy. Give them a lot more money, you will see how greedy the person can be. If a person, for example, is generous, again, without much money, they can express their generosity very well. Give them more money, they will be able to express more generosity. If they have a lot more money, well, they can become a lot more generous. So basically, whether it's greed or generosity or anything else, money is just an amplifier, like a catalyst. So if people want money, it's simply often because they feel like they need this kind of catalyst. So they need it. Well, if they need money, there are ways to help them make more money. For example, I help people make money by becoming certified Qigong coaches. They learn how to make money by doing that which I do, essentially working with other people, helping them become healthier and happier. That's something that I found particularly beneficial in my line of work. In your line of work, maybe you will find something else that people in Sweden want.
Yes, but that's why I'm learning Qigong and uh, chose you as a teacher, because I want to heal people and bring health to my surroundings.
Right.
But the more I preach, the more it goes the opposite direction. This is a society.
Yeah. Well, nobody argues that people need help with health. I'm sure that Swedish people need help with health just like people in many other countries. They may not recognize that they need help with their health. So finding that intersection between what they want and what they need would be your task, my friend. Finding what it is that they recognize that they need help with, that they would pay money for, and offering them that kind of service would be an excellent way to apply your Qigong skills so that you would be able to make a living doing what you love doing and helping people so that they improve the quality of their lives. Makes sense, right? It's not rocket science. It's something that obviously requires a lot of thought, a lot of attention, but it's not difficult. It's simply changing our attitude towards it instead of just saying, oh, screw it, it's too difficult, I can't figure it out. No, instead we actually say, it's difficult, but I can figure it out because it's so important to me. I can't live without figuring this out. I need to figure this out. So we basically dedicate more resources to figuring it out, to identifying these areas of intersection between what people want, what people need, what we're good at, and what we're passionate about. Once you find that intersection, you'll be golden, my friend. That's something I would definitely love to continue helping you with. I know that we worked a few years back, and if this is something that you feel like it's still missing, let's get busy finding out what it is. Anyone else would like to speak up and share what you experienced today as a result of this simple exploration? Going once? Going twice? All right, even Marsha is not speaking. Oh, no, she is speaking.
I had to find my mute button. Yeah, even when I'm not speaking, it's like, wow, where did the communication?
Something is wrong with this picture.
What I've experienced recently is, I would say, in the a feeling of passion showed up, meaning there's something going on and I feel like I should be doing something about it. And I'm getting from your sharing here that I don't like, yes, I want to provide a service. So there's two parts of the quadrant. And I'm stopped at what talent do I have that would make a difference? So it leaves me like not moving. And like Par, how would I get, or do I need to get people to pay me to do that? And of course, I want to be paid to do what I do, of course. But the talent area is where my block is. And I get the thinking of, I don't have the skill to do what those people need, or I'm not good enough at it, something that wanders around in that conversation. So say something about how to elevate the different quadrants. And I've pointed to talent as one of them, and it's many rambles, but just say more about elevating those four quadrants.
Of course. Yeah, I will be happy to do that, Marsha. And it may be beneficial not only for you, but also for other folks watching this Qigong coaching clinic, or perhaps participating in it live. So what we need to do is to dissect each of these quadrants into smaller areas, or simply create a word cloud. The term word cloud, like basically populate this square or circle or whatever shape this part of the Venn diagram takes with words. Something that, for example, would indicate what you like doing, that you would do if you were given permission, if you were not supposed to be making any money, you would just do this because it's like play for a child. So you literally populate that quadrant, something that you're passionate about. Then you take the next quadrant and populate that quadrant or that part of the Venn diagram with words as well. What is it that people need or the world needs? Again, I came up with several examples. You may come up with other examples. Essentially, each person may have their own ideas of what the world needs. If you put yours into writing that will populate that quadrant. Preferably just short words, maybe a combination of 2 words, so that it wouldn't be like sentences. The next thing, let's do the same thing for the other 2 quadrants, what you're particularly good at. You're saying that you're not sure that you're good at that which people need. Well, if you create a word cloud and put whatever things that you are good at in that quadrant, there may be some intersections between what people need and what you have to offer. And what people need is the 4th quadrant, so let's populate that one with what you either think people need, or better yet, asking people around you what they need, at least observing what it is that they would pay money for, and maybe noticing that other people who seem to be doing something similar to what you're doing, what they're being paid for. So basically that will give you an idea how to populate that 4th quadrant with some words or terms or services that people would want to pay for. In other words, it's not rocket science. It's something that would allow you to just simply see some connections between this quadrant and that quadrant. If there are some similar words, or at least they fall under one category of activities, for example, as Per was talking about healing. Well, there are all kinds of different approaches to healing, but that's kind of an overall umbrella term. And so if people need some healing and he has some healing abilities that he would like to offer, well, then there may be some intersection. Of course, it would require finding specific areas of intersection, maybe even coming up with new words or new titles or new descriptions of what that would be. But that's something that needs to begin somewhere. We begin with simply creating more clarity about the contents of each of the quadrants. Does it make sense?
It does. And what occurred to me in your sharing there was it might be helpful to me to ask other people what they think my talents are. That getting input from somebody else, because where I see my talents, I think maybe that's just a limited basket of what I'm really good at, and other people would have a point of view that, oh, I didn't think about that as being something I do well, but other people experience it. So that's a
Brilliant.
task I can take on.
Yes, but even more importantly, rather than asking, or in addition to asking people about what they think your talents are, that's kind of like giving them the reins to your own cart. I would ask them what they want so that they would improve the quality of their lives. And then you can see how that matches what you have to offer. Or you can even ask them, what would you like me to do for you that you would appreciate enough to pay me for? You know, this kind of questions.
I think all those things go hand in hand, but right there was this real blind spot of, I really don't know what the people that I hang out with think I do well. And that would be a real big thing for me to find out. Because if I asked several people and got, oh, here's an area of my life that people really notice about me, I might have not put as much value on that thing. Because it's just like you say, it's like riding a bicycle to me. So it's like no big deal. I don't think about it, right? But other people
Right.
go, wow, she does that well. So doing a survey at the same time, asking people what they want and what they would pay money for, I think is a task that I can take on.
Brilliant. Yeah, very good. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Per. You seem to be raising your hand just a minute ago when Marsha was talking. Did you have something to add?
Yes, it's very hard to be a prophet in your own neighborhood, in your own town. Same as for Jesus, Jesus Christ. He was never big in Bethlehem. but the rest of the
Right.
world, he was great. And that's how the world looks like. And that's why I want to ask you, how is your community taking your services?
Maybe that's why I don't live in Ukraine where I grew up.
I mean, you have Mantak Kia, he go to US, and you have this many Chinese masters. They go to US because US have many sick people who seek Chinese medical expertise.
Yeah.
But in their own
Right.
countries, there are so many, so it's hard to know which one is great.
Right. And that's exactly what I would also agree with you upon, that it's hard to be a prophet in your own neighborhood or in your own hometown. So that's one of the reasons, I guess, I don't live where I grew up. I left Ukraine many years ago because I experienced persecution instead of appreciation. When I moved to the United States, I experienced much more appreciation. I enjoy doing what I do here, and people actually appreciate it and pay me money for it. And I basically live my life on purpose. Well, who knows? It's the same advice that the Dalai Lama gave me way back in 1994. He said, yeah, if you can't live here in this country, maybe you need to go somewhere else. It's not easy to move to another country. It's challenging in many respects, but it worked out all right for me, and it worked out for many, many people who came to America from other parts of the world. I don't know if America is the right place, but you may consider that if Sweden is not the right country for you, well, Europe is a big continent, and it's easy to move from one European country to another. And you speak good English, so you would be able to communicate easily with people anywhere. And David, you raised a hand. Yeah, please go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I want to actually express my appreciation. You have a very nice, simple way of laying things out for a discussion like this, which I appreciated from the moment that I first met you on a Zoom call. But from my personal perspective, I really what I gain a lot from, what's helped me the most and is continuing, is actually like listening to you, listening to Par, listening to people when they share like their spoken truth. And what I get from that is I get a better sense of not only what my strengths are, like what I'm good at, like you're talking about, but I also get it, if I'm really carefully paying attention when I listen, I also get to feel into my weaknesses. And so when I realize that I've attempted this thing for 20 years, finding out what is really calling me, and moving into it and feeling that sense of inadequacy that Par spoke to so eloquently, really, it's become sort of a passion for me, actually having these sort of sharing circles. And so that's sort of like what's cutting edge for me. And I've gone through 3 careers that were specifically to make money that I didn't like. I knew I wasn't going to like, that kind of a thing. I said my whole life I would never do, and then did. So I have a way of learning from mistakes, if you want to call it that. But anyway, I thought I'd just share that and share my appreciation for you also. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, David. Yeah, this is really a paradox. Sometimes we promise ourselves not to do something and end up doing exactly that. I think one of the things that we end up is just simply narrow field of vision. It's like we look at something and we realize that we don't resonate with it, and we decide, okay, this is not what I want. But we get stuck in that narrow field of vision, so we don't see other options. And so obviously where attention goes, energy flows. If we just keep focusing on that which we don't want, and we promise ourselves not to go in that direction, we end up actually going exactly there. It's just like downhill skiing, you get on the slope and the whole slope is clear except for maybe one tree growing somewhere down down the run. And you look at that tree, and the faster you go, the more you tell yourself, well, whatever I do, I don't want to run into that tree. I don't want to run into that tree. Well, guess where your skis go when you're focusing on the tree? Right there towards that same tree. So we learn how to open our horizons, how to expand our consciousness, if you will, how to notice things that we do resonate with rather than just knowing really well what we don't resonate with. How do we do that? Well, there are several Qigong practices that I teach, and I would be happy to share with you one of them today that actually is quite a paradoxical practice. For example, there are these two little bowls. There are some coins in them, but traditionally this would be bowls filled with water, or you can put coins, or you can put marbles in them, something that would basically give you the sense that if you tip this bowl or this cup, that whatever is in it will fall out. Now, I recommend not to use water, at least at first, so that you don't get wet all the time. And while you're holding these two cups, see how you can just start moving one of them in such a way that you can keep it level so it doesn't spill whatever is inside of it. Once again, making this full circle like this and coming back to where you started. This is a wonderful practice. It requires moving your whole body, and you can go clockwise or you can go counterclockwise. And Tisha says, wow, yeah, this is like a magic trick, isn't it? Moving without grasping this cup. See, I'm not holding it with my fingers. I'm not grasping it. It's just resting in my palm. Now, after doing this a few times with one hand, maybe you can switch to the other hand and do the same thing. It requires some degree of focus and physical coordination. Use your body, tilt your body enough so that you don't just move the arm in an isolated fashion. After moving a few times in one direction, switch to the opposite direction. So clockwise, counterclockwise. Seems like a relatively easy move. Well, it's simple, not necessarily easy, but it's certainly simple. Now I'm going to make it difficult for you. We're going to make move with one arm and then engage the other arm. Oh my God. Now this requires paying attention to two hands at the same time, because you have to really pay attention to both of them in order to not to spill stuff inside of your little cups. You can go clockwise or you can go counterclockwise, whichever floats your boat. But notice how I'm not spilling, at least not yet. I'm paying attention to both of these cups simultaneously. How is that possible? Well, it's because I expand my attention. Yeah, does it need a century or two to master that? You're absolutely right, TJ. It takes a while. Maybe not a century, maybe just a decade or two. But I'm joking. You may be able to actually figure that out a lot faster than taking several decades. It's not that hard. It's just simply a matter of expanding your consciousness so that you're paying attention to two things at the same time. It kind of defies the definition of focus. Focus, by definition, is paying attention to one thing at a time. How is it possible to focus on two things? Well, it's because you expand your focal point. So in other words, instead of point of focus, it actually expands to a field. It's like instead of attention being like a searchlight, it becomes more like a floodlight. And so once you develop the ability to move one way or another, then you can play with other alternatives. So basically, then you can also move your whole body. And like this. So basically, it becomes like circus performance that you may actually enjoy, and that will train your consciousness to expand, to cover two things at once, instead of just focusing on one thing only. What is that going to do for you? Well, like we were talking about, expanding consciousness gives you ability to perceive more things at the same time, rather than just focusing on one thing that you don't resonate with. You may be able to develop ability to perceive several things. And then as you juxtapose them or compare how much you resonate with each and every one of them, you will be able to develop discernment. What's discernment? Well, that's the ability to identify what you resonate most with out of the existing smorgasbord of options. And when you develop discernment, I guarantee you will be able to make much more intelligent decisions. It's really hard to imagine anyone discerning making stupid decisions. However, most people make stupid decisions in their lives. Why? Because they don't have the discernment. So when we develop the ability to expand our consciousness, and we embody this ability, we don't just talk the good talk, we actually walk the talk. Like I just demonstrated, moving with 2 cups without losing what's in them. In this case, it was just coins, but none of them fell out. Even though I wasn't holding these cups, I was just letting them rest on my hands and moving in a way that would not fall over. When you develop this kind of skills, then you start experimenting with applying these skills to perceive things differently. For example, you can perceive several options in terms of what people need. And you may be able to identify out of these smorgasbord of options, which ones you personally resonate with the most. So instead of just focusing on that which you don't like and you don't appreciate, don't resonate with, and just bitching and moaning that this is bad and nobody wants you and nobody likes you, you actually expand your consciousness, and by doing so, give yourself freedom of choice. People, by and large, experience greater happiness when they experience greater freedom. Yeah, Marcia, you have something to add, do you?
Yes.
Please do.
What I hear you saying is that because we are a whole being, mental, physical, emotional, if you take on an exercise in one of those areas, even just the practice, not necessarily the mastery, but even just the practice of it brings on expansion in all areas. So I remember someone asking me to learn to juggle. Okay, I never got good at it, but I definitely saw how it moved into my thinking realm and expanded my consideration of I can think of more than one thing at a time and keep enough attention dancing there to keep things moving. And again, I would say I didn't master it by any stretch of the imagination. This is that kind of thing where practice doesn't just stay in that realm, it impacts all of ourself, all of our way of experience in life. So, okay, there's another thing for me to take on.
It's very similar to juggling, except nothing is leaving your hands. These
Okay.
things actually stay in your hands. So then it's easier than juggling because there's no concern about tossing and catching. But yes, you're absolutely right. Juggling is another really nice and relatively efficient way to expand consciousness and develop that ability in the physical body, not just theoretically, but actually embodying that principle. So, like, for example, people ask me about martial arts. Why do you practice martial arts? Well, it's just like juggling, except you're juggling people. You literally you develop the ability to handle a lot of tougher situations by exposing yourself to some challenges. So that's how we get good at some things. We expose ourselves to a challenge, we take the challenge upon ourselves, and we keep on practicing to see how we can overcome the challenge. If this is something that we develop as a habit, it eventually turns into what we call growth mental attitude. And so the mental attitude really determines how well we grow. And the growth-oriented mental attitude allows us to grow on a more consistent and more efficient basis. So why don't we actually get into this growth attitude state? Simply because most people don't even know that it exists. So I'm here to share with you that it does exist. It's relatively easy to get into, and the benefits are tremendous. There are really no cons and lots of pros to getting into that mental state of growth-focused attitude. So that's going to be my gift for you today, my friends. If you have any other comments, any questions, anything else that you would like to add, Per, yeah, go ahead.
Well, when I practice my piano, then I
Yeah.
use my left and right hand, and that's opens
Right.
to same with the cups, opens up
Yes.
the brain functions, and you raise your chi energy levels around yourself,
You're absolutely
and you
right.
can see dimensions in your martial arts.
Yes,
But
and you've been practicing martial arts for many years as now, as far as I know. How is that coming along?
well, because of the conflict in the world, I'm excluded from practicing it right now.
Ah,
And I mean, if you and me start arguing about the Ukraine, we probably be unfriends too, because
I see.
opinions are so many.
True that.
So
Yes, so we learn how to respect other people's opinions without having to impose our opinions on others. And that simply means that we can have conversations without fighting. That's a skill in its own right. Diplomacy, or ability to be able to express your opinions and share what your perspectives are without feeling like you have to agree with other people, and letting them to express their opinions without convincing them that they're wrong and you are right. So that's something that we learn through practice. The more practice we have like that under our belt, the better we become. So I would definitely encourage you to practice discussing with people these type of topics without trying to convince them about anything, or without necessarily acquiescing to them convincing you that they're right. Simply, we diplomatically explore opinions without having to subscribe to the opinions. This is something that The war in Ukraine obviously brings to the foreground. And I've obviously had conversations with people about it. But most people seem to be somewhat in agreement with my perspective on it. So there was no need to really be even very diplomatic about it. I'm sure that there are some people who don't agree with me on it, so I just don't come across them very often. It's also the art of creating the sphere of influence, having the circle of people surrounding you that would be supportive of you rather than trying to tear you down all the time. So this is something I would also encourage each and every one of you folks to work on. Surrounding yourself with the right people, with the people who are interested in mutual support and empowerment rather than tearing down the next person to them because otherwise they don't feel adequate themselves. So this is going to be an ongoing journey, obviously, and I would love to continue supporting you on this. So as my gift, in addition to what I already shared with you today, I also want to invite you to contact me directly. You have my email address, so don't hesitate to email me. And I will be happy to offer you a complimentary session just for participating in our Qigong coaching clinic today. Or if you're watching this as a recording, obviously for watching the recording all the way to the end. I hope that it's going to make your life better, improve the quality of other people's lives. This is what I've been doing for most of my life. And when people ask me, what's your job description? I say, I help people manifest and live their dreams. What do you do?